At first glance, Britain had no business becoming the richest country on Earth. It wasn't the biggest country. It didn't have the largest population. It didn't possess the most fertile farmland. And for much of its history, it wasn't even one of Europe's most powerful kingdoms. Yet, by the late 19th century, Britain had achieved something extraordinary. London had become the financial capital of the world. British factories supplied goods to almost every continent. British ships dominated international trade, and the British Empire controlled roughly a quarter of the world's land and population. So how did a small island in the North Atlantic become the center of the global economy? The answer begins long before the Industrial Revolution, and surprisingly, a lot of it comes down to geography. Britain's rise started with something it didn't create: its location. Being an island came with enormous advantages. Unlike France, Germany, or Poland, Britain didn't have powerful armies constantly marching across its borders. For centuries, European powers spent vast amounts of money fighting land wars. Britain didn't have to. Sure, invasions happened. The Romans came, the Vikings came, the Normans came. But after 1066, no foreign army successfully conquered England. That's more than 950 years of avoiding the kind of devastation that repeatedly reshaped mainland Europe. And when your cities aren't being burned down every few decades, that's generally good for business. Britain was also blessed with excellent natural harbors. Places like London, Liverpool, Bristol, and Portsmouth became gateways to the wider world. Trade was easier, ships were easier to build, and commerce naturally flourished. Over time, Britain began looking outward rather than inward. While many European kingdoms focused on land warfare, Britain increasingly focused on the sea, and that would change everything. By the 1500s and 1600s, global trade was becoming incredibly profitable. Spices, sugar, tea, silk, tobacco. These products could be bought cheaply in one part of the world and sold for enormous profits elsewhere. There was only one problem: you had to get there first, and that required ships. Lots of ships. Britain poured resources into developing its navy. Eventually, the Royal Navy became the most powerful maritime force on Earth. This allowed Britain to protect trade routes and challenge rival powers. Spain, France, the Netherlands, Portugal, all competed for global influence. But Britain kept expanding its reach. Think of the Royal Navy as the world's largest shipping insurance company. If British merchants knew their cargo was protected, they could take bigger risks. And bigger risks often produced bigger profits. The result was a powerful feedback loop. More trade created more wealth. More wealth funded more ships. More ships protected more trade. And around it went. When people talk about Britain's success, they usually point to the empire. And yes, the empire mattered. But many nations had empires. Spain had one. Portugal had one. France had one. So why did Britain get richer? One major reason was finance. Britain developed some of the world's most sophisticated financial institutions: banks, insurance companies, stock exchanges, government bonds. In 1694, the Bank of England was founded. This helped the British government borrow money more efficiently than many rivals. That might sound boring, and it is. But boring financial systems often create extraordinary wealth. Wars are expensive. Building ships is expensive. Building factories is expensive. Britain became unusually good at raising capital. Investors trusted British institutions, and trusted institutions attract money. Lots of money. By the 18th century, London was becoming one of the world's greatest financial centers. And capital is like fuel. The more you have, the faster an economy can grow. Now we arrive at one of history's biggest lucky breaks. Coal. Lots of coal. And even better, much of Britain's coal was relatively accessible. Coal is basically stored energy. Before fossil fuels, economies depended heavily on humans, animals, wind, and water. There were limits to all of these. Coal changed that. Suddenly, enormous amounts of energy became available. Britain happened to possess large coal deposits located near major industrial centers. This dramatically reduced energy costs. Factories could operate more efficiently. Metal production increased. Transportation improved. It's difficult to overstate how important this was. Imagine discovering that your country had a giant battery capable of powering an economic revolution. That's essentially what happened. Then came the event that truly transformed Britain. The Industrial Revolution. For thousands of years, economic growth had been slow. Then, suddenly, everything accelerated. Machines began performing tasks that once required enormous amounts of human labor. Production exploded. British inventors developed new technologies: the spinning jenny, the water frame, the steam engine, the power loom. These inventions dramatically increased productivity. A single worker operating machinery could now produce far more than previous generations. Goods became cheaper. Factories expanded. Cities grew. Profits increased. Britain wasn't simply producing more products, it was producing them faster and cheaper than competitors. That gave British businesses a massive advantage. And because Britain already possessed a powerful navy and extensive trade networks, these products could be sold all over the world. Industrialization and empire reinforced one another. Factories needed markets. The empire provided markets. Factories needed raw materials. The empire provided raw materials. It was an extraordinarily powerful combination. By the late 19th century, the British Empire stretched across the globe. Canada, India, Australia, parts of Africa, the Caribbean, and many strategic ports connecting them. At its height, the empire controlled roughly 1/4 of the world's population. That's not a typo. 1 out of every 4 people on Earth lived under British rule. The empire created enormous economic opportunities. Raw materials flowed toward Britain. Manufactured goods flowed outward. Trade routes became increasingly integrated. However, it's important to avoid oversimplifying the story. The empire did not magically create wealth from nothing. Without Britain's financial system, industrial economy, merchant fleets, and naval dominance, the empire would have been far less profitable. The empire aligned Britain's advantages. It didn't create all of them. By the late 1800s, London was arguably the world's financial capital. Global trade increasingly relied on British banks, British insurers, British investors, British shipping companies. The British pound became one of the world's most trusted currencies. International commerce often passed through London. Think of it this way. Britain wasn't merely making products anymore. It was also making money from helping everyone else move products. And that is often even more profitable. So why Britain lost its lead? No dominance lasts forever, and Britain's eventually faded. Other nations began industrializing. Germany became an industrial giant. The United States became an economic powerhouse. Both countries possessed something Britain lacked: scale. America had a vast territory, huge natural resources, a rapidly growing population, and an enormous domestic market. Then came 2 world wars. Although Britain emerged victorious, victory came at a tremendous financial cost. The empire began shrinking, new powers rose, and the economic center of gravity gradually shifted across the Atlantic. So how did Britain become the richest country in the world? Not because of one factor, not because of one king, and not simply because of the empire. Britain combined several advantages at exactly the right moment: a secure island geography, powerful naval forces, strong financial institutions, abundant coal, technological innovation, global trade networks, and an empire that amplified all of those strengths. History often looks inevitable in hindsight, but Britain's rise was anything but inevitable. A small island became the center of the global economy. And for over a century, the world revolved around it.